It's Starseed Mentality, back at you again with another video. And today we're going to be discussing or pretty much addressing kind of the people who say that human trafficking is a conspiracy theory. Now, to start off this video, I kind of have to do a recap or start off with this photo right here. Now, if you ever watched the video between Young Pharaoh and Anomaly, you know, or at least that I think that's his name. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but you would know that they basically, or their fans basically wanted them to do a collaboration together because they're both conservative YouTubers or public figures who talk about pretty much the same topics or have the same perspectives on the same issues. However, this video, as if you would have seen it, turns into a racial and historical debate. Now, with this racial kind of debate, you know that Anomaly was saying, basically his argument was addressing the fact that not all white people were slave owners. Now, why that is true, okay, yes, all white people were not slave owners, but Young Pharaoh's basic argument was that Anomaly or frustration was that Anomaly wasn't going to admit that although all white people didn't have slaves, all white people, including white immigrants, benefited off the services of African people. But kinda let's go back to what Anomaly, or I'm gonna call him in this video A. Let's go back to what A was kind of discussing. He was basically saying in his argument that not all white people were slaves because slave owners have, you know, a certain code and there's a language or something that they call themselves, wink wink, that kind of elaborates on the idea that they were trying to keep African peoples and slaves. This is usually the U community or the Hebrew community. This then turns into kind of a little bit of American history via the Civil War and post-Civil War era, with Greeks being the origin of the Democratic Party and the Greeks' origins being connected with the Hyksos, and the Hyksos were typically the Semitic group of people that basically tried to hijack Egypt and was basically responsible for the collapse and fall of Egypt. So, in other words, slavery and human trafficking was kind of an elite occupation. Rich people and royal families had slaves. We see the depiction that rich people or royal families had slaves to initiate that they were rich. Melanin is said to have been worth more than gold. So to have a slave meant that you had a position and power. You were an elite. Even if we look at the plantation homes, um, you know, you had to be rich to live in a mansion like that or have property like that, or to be a landowner. Wink, wink. Who controls the land? Who controls loans? Who controls banks? So it's all there. In addition to royal bloodline, right? If you were royalty, you had slaves. You had slaves because you can afford maids. You can afford people to do your hair. You can afford nannies and things like that. When we even think about the home enrolled empire or the Catholic Church that basically created missionaries to go into African nations, spreading their religion around via force and, you know, slavery, Um, their church initially were for elites and rich people in status. And this article that I found and actually was discovered via a professor at my university that I'm at. I took a Catholic course. This article here will basically explain, I'll link it down below by the way, but this article basically explains how the Catholic Church kind of got split between elitism, or the elites of the Holy Roman Catholic Church versus, middle class Catholics. So not even all oohs or all Catholics are elites. So my question is basically, why are certain people saying that elites or people in the government have nothing to do with human trafficking? And that's a conspiracy theory. My question to you is, why can't they be? We know that Jeffrey Epstein had, been accused of taking a lot of elites' powers of government and positions of government and celebrities on this island, which they've kidnapped kids and did a whole lot of other stuff, that involves sexual assault to younger people. In addition to, they've been human trafficking people for years. If we think about slavery and how elites were orchestrating and organizing slaves, we know that it's people in the government running these kind of operations. And they have been for years, considering the royal family and other high people in the government, in addition to pedophilia and their infatuation with children and the human trafficking and kidnapping of people of color. Okay. I feel that it is no coincidence that when children of color go missing, they label them as runaways, or they label them as, they just don't want to be found. And they actually say, a missing persons case is technically not a crime. Now, my question to that is, how do you know it's not a crime if you haven't done a proper investigation to even see and lay eyes on that person to see if they've even been abducted or abused? I think that these are all cover ups to obviously cover up their operation, of course. Um, it's also not a surprise that when people of color go missing, the news doesn't even bring it up. There are no search parties involved. Um, it's just no coincidence. They've been human trafficking people of color and child trafficking people of color for years. It has kind of been the industry of the world that we live in, especially under this new world order that kind of initiated slavery. That's kind of how they operated. They operate. Their religion is based off a slave race or a working race, which initially started off as people of color. And so I question, people who say things like, it's just a conspiracy theory. That's not true. I mean, how can it not be true? And it's literally history, and they've literally been doing it for years. Um, Slave owners did not want to give up their slaves. That's why there was a war, a civil war, of course. And we kind of know the origins of the Civil War, who was the Confederate side, and then who now is covering up human trafficking and things like that. Or rather, helping human trafficking via immigration and things like that. And I think, at the end here, I'll just put a little photo of kind of how Hillary Clinton was being kind of accused of smuggling, Haitians, illegally smuggling Haitians into or onto American soil. She got caught doing that. And this is a well known, popular Democratic person. Um, Bill Clinton was on Jeffrey Epstein's island, okay? And just a whole lot of weird stuff. And then they lied to the media, they try to make it seem like families are being separated at the border, right? But they're not explaining like the whole story that kids are being smuggled and taken away from their parents at the border, because of so much crime that's going on at the border. And so, you know, just pay attention, just be aware. These people have been doing this for a very long time. I'm not going to go too far into what they do and the rituals and all of that. I tried to do a video like that, and then they took it down. But, either way it go, be aware, pay attention. Don't let nobody get nothing past you. People of color, black people, I don't care what group, because we all kind of melanated or come from African people, which are melanated. So they're snatching Indians, they're snatching Africans, they snatching us the most. So I just want to put that on record. But they snatching Hispanics, the Latinx community, they're snatching them up too at that border, okay? And then they're covering up, making it seem like Trump crazy for trying to build a wall. He's not crazy, okay? It's for real. Like, we're being serious. Human trafficking is real. It's not a joke. They've been doing this for a very long time. Be aware. Pay attention. Have weapons on you. Learn how to fight, girls and boys. Girls, always have a boy you trust around you. Don't go nowhere by yourself or with just your ladies. Sad to say it, that's the world we live in. If you've ever watched that movie Antebellum, you understand what I'm talking about. Kind of the horrific, how slavery was basically high people like we are right now, very educated, doing their jobs, and then just the next day they were just taken from their world and put into confinement where they were slaves and where they were laborers, okay? That's literally what our ancestors experienced, and they're literally still doing that shit today. They're taking you from your regular everyday life, being an educated college student, working class woman or man, and they're putting you off into different areas of society where they cannot find you, or you a sex worker somewhere or something, okay? Some people go off the ledge and say they kill you and they use you for rituals. We don't know, but pay attention, okay? They're covering it up. They're lying about it. They're telling you and trying to fuel the media that it's a conspiracy theory, and it's not, okay? And with that being said, I love y'all. Peace. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this video. Click the bell notification down below to stay updated on my content.